Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World. Today, we have a coin that you might have seen many times before, but you may not realize just how valuable it can be. We're talking about the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1944. Now, most of us have come across these pennies, probably in the bottom of our coin jars or scattered around in our pocket change, but if you know where to look, that humble penny could be hiding a big surprise. Stick with us, because by the end of this video, you'll learn how a 1944 Lincoln penny could be worth a staggering amount of money. Believe me, you won't want to miss this. Let's start with a bit of history about the Lincoln penny. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Since then, it has become one of the most iconic and widely circulated coins in U.S. history. The design has remained largely unchanged, with the famous portrait of President Lincoln gracing the obverse side of the coin and the image of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. The 1944 Lincoln penny holds special historical significance. Why? Well, this coin was struck during a very unique period in American history, World War II. Due to the war, the U.S. government had to find alternative ways to mint coins, particularly because metals like copper were being heavily rationed for military use. So, in 1944, the U.S. Mint produced a special batch of pennies using steel that had been coated in zinc. This change in material led to the creation of a truly rare and valuable variety of the 1944 Lincoln penny, but not all 1944 pennies are created equal. While most of the 1944 Lincoln pennies were minted in the traditional copper form, a small number were made using the zinc-coated steel planchets left over from the previous year. These zinc-coated steel pennies are extremely rare, and they are the ones that attract serious attention from collectors. If you're lucky enough to have one of these 1944 steel pennies, you could be holding onto a coin worth far more than its face value. Now, let's break down the design of the 1944 Lincoln penny. On the obverse, you'll find the well-known image of Abraham Lincoln, facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust," above him, and "Liberty," to his left. Below Lincoln's image is the date, 1944, marking the year this particular coin was minted. What makes this coin so special is the fact that it was struck at a time when the United States was in the midst of a world-changing conflict. The penny serves as a reminder of that turbulent period in American history. On the reverse of the coin, you'll see the iconic image of the Lincoln Memorial. This design, created by sculptor Frank Gasparo, shows the memorial with columns and a detailed depiction of the famous structure in Washington, D.C. The words, "United States of America," curve along the top, and "E Pluribus Unum" is inscribed on the ribbon just beneath the memorial. At the bottom, you'll find 1 cent, marking the value of the coin. Now, what really makes the 1944 Lincoln penny stand out is the material it was made from. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of 1944 pennies were struck in copper, but the real treasure lies in the rare 1944 steel pennies. These steel pennies are incredibly difficult to find, and they were minted due to the shortage of copper during World War II. They were produced in very limited numbers, and when you combine that with the fact that they're over 75 years old, it's no wonder why collectors are willing to pay top dollar for them. So, how much could a 1944 steel Lincoln penny be worth? Well, if you happen to have one of these rare pennies in excellent condition, you could be looking at a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. While most 1944 copper pennies are worth only a few cents, the steel version can command a significant premium. A well-preserved 1944 steel penny can be worth up to $35,000, yes, you heard that right, $35,000 for a single penny. That's an incredible amount of money for a coin that was originally worth just 1 cent. It's hard to believe that something so small and seemingly insignificant could have such a high value. So, if you've got an old jar of pennies lying around or you've come across a 1944 Lincoln penny in your change, don't just dismiss it. Take a closer look, because you might be holding a small treasure that could make you a significant amount of money. Today, we're uncovering the hidden value of a coin that might just be sitting in your spare change right now. The United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1980 may look like a regular penny at first glance, but there's a surprising amount of history and value wrapped up in this little coin. In fact, Some of these pennies are worth far more than you could imagine. Stick with us until the end, and I'll reveal just how much a 1980 Lincoln penny could actually be worth today. The Lincoln penny, a staple in U.S. currency since 1909, has seen many variations over the years. While the basic design has remained almost unchanged, the materials, minting techniques, and even the occasional error have given certain years and editions a significant edge in the world of coin collecting. So, what makes the 1980 Lincoln penny stand out? Well, for starters, 1980 was a pivotal year for the coin. In 1980, the United States Mint continued to produce the standard copper-based Lincoln pennies, but these pennies were entering a time of economic change. By this time, inflation had made its impact on the cost of materials, and the U.S. Mint was starting to explore different ways to handle the production of coins. This was also during a time when pennies were still made from 95% copper, making them a little more valuable when you consider the price of copper at the time. On the obverse side of the 1980 Lincoln penny, we still see the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. The image was originally designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, and it continues to serve as one of the most recognizable presidential portraits on any U.S. coin. Lincoln's profile is engraved in fine detail, with the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, and "Liberty" inscribed to his left. Beneath Lincoln's bust, you'll find the year, 1980, indicating the year the coin was minted. On the reverse side of the 1980 penny, you'll find the iconic image of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. This image was used on the reverse of the penny from 1959 until 2008, and it's still one of the most beloved coin designs in U.S. history. The Lincoln Memorial is shown with intricate detail, and the words, "United States of America," arc along the top, while "E Pluribus Unum" is inscribed just below the memorial. At the bottom, you'll see the words, 1 cent, marking the coin's value. Now, let's get to the exciting part, the value of the 1980 Lincoln penny. You might be thinking that a penny from 1980 can't be worth much, but that's where you'd be wrong. While most of the 1980 pennies produced were widely circulated and are worth only their face value, just 1 cent, there are some rare exceptions. Certain 1980 pennies are worth far more than their original value, especially if they are in excellent condition or if they have unique characteristics that make them stand out in the world of coin collecting. The first thing to note is the condition of the coin. Like any collectible item, the better the condition, the higher the value. A 1980 penny that has been kept in mint condition, with no signs of wear, scratches, or discoloration, can command a premium price. These are often referred to as uncirculated or mint state coins. A 1980 penny in pristine condition, with sharp details and no visible flaws, is much more desirable to collectors than a heavily circulated coin. The better the coin's condition, the higher the price it can fetch on the market, but there's more. Some 1980 Lincoln pennies have rare minting errors that can significantly increase their value. These errors can range from simple misprints to more dramatic flaws that make the coin unique. For example, a 1980 penny with a double strike, where the image is stamped twice, or a coin with an off-center strike, where the design is misaligned, can be incredibly valuable. These minting errors are rare, and collectors often pay top dollar for them because of their uniqueness. One of the most important things to consider when determining the value of a 1980 Lincoln penny is rarity. Some variations or minting errors are incredibly scarce, and this scarcity can cause the price to skyrocket. For example, certain 1980 pennies were struck on the wrong type of planchet, which could make them extremely valuable. Coins that were mistakenly struck on foreign planchets or incorrect metals are highly sought after by serious collectors, as they represent a unique piece of history. So, just how much could a 1980 Lincoln penny be worth? While most of the pennies from that year are only worth 1 cent, a well-preserved or error-struck 1980 penny could be worth far more. In fact, a rare 1980 Lincoln penny, particularly one with a minting error or in uncirculated condition, could be worth as much as $31,000, yes, you heard that right, $31,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe that a coin so small and seemingly insignificant could be worth such an enormous amount. But that's the beauty of coin collecting, sometimes, the smallest pieces of currency hold the biggest surprises. So, if you've got a 1980 Lincoln penny in your collection, take a close look. It could be hiding a small fortune. Before you go, don't forget to check your change jar or that old coin collection gathering dust. You might have a rare treasure sitting right in front of you, just waiting to be discovered. Today, we're about to dive deep into a coin that may seem pretty ordinary at first glance but could be hiding a massive surprise. Yes, I'm talking about the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1975. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a penny, how much could it really be worth? Well, stick with me, because you might be surprised to learn that this particular penny could be worth way more than just 1 cent. In fact, by the end of this video, you might find yourself looking through your coin collection or checking your change jar for this hidden treasure. First, let's take a step back and talk about the history of the Lincoln penny. Introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln cent has become one of the most iconic coins in the United States. For over a century, it's been a symbol of American currency, with the famous image of Lincoln on the obverse side and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. These two images have become synonymous with the U.S. penny, and each version of the coin tells its own unique story. Now, the 1975 Lincoln penny might not be as famous as some other coins, but it's actually got an interesting backstory. The 1975 penny was struck during a time when the U.S. was dealing with a few significant issues, including inflation and a shift in the metal composition of its coins. By the mid-1970s, the U.S. Mint had already started transitioning away from the high copper content used in earlier pennies, due to rising costs of copper. The 1975 penny was still made primarily of copper, but it marked a period of change, as the U.S. Mint would begin experimenting with new materials in the years to come. On the obverse side of the coin, we see the classic design of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this portrait of Lincoln has been a part of U.S. currency since 1909, making it one of the longest-standing coin designs in the country's history. Surrounding Lincoln's profile, we see the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, with "Liberty" inscribed to the left and the year, 1975, just below Lincoln's bust. The reverse side of the 1975 penny features the image of the Lincoln Memorial, which has been on the back of the coin since 1959. The memorial is depicted with incredible detail, showing off the columns and the structure in its full glory. Above the memorial, we see the words, "United States of America," and beneath it, the phrase, "E pluribus unum." At the very bottom, the coin's value is clearly stated with the words, 1 cent. So, you might be wondering, what makes the 1975 Lincoln penny so special? After all, this was just a typical year for coinage, right? Well, not exactly. While most of the 1975 pennies were struck in large quantities and are still common in circulation, there are a few specific characteristics that make certain 1975 pennies extremely valuable to collectors. One key factor is the condition of the coin. As with any collectible, the value of the coin increases significantly if it's in pristine, uncirculated condition. A 1975 penny that has been carefully preserved, showing no signs of wear or damage, can be worth far more than one that has been in circulation for decades. These well-preserved coins are known as mint state or uncirculated, and they are highly sought after by collectors. If you happen to have a 1975 penny in near-perfect condition, you're already looking at a coin that could be worth much more than its face value. However, it's not just the condition that determines the value of the 1975 penny. Another factor that can significantly boost its value is a minting error. Over the years, various errors have been discovered in coins from this period, and the 1975 penny is no exception. Some 1975 pennies were struck with double dies, where the design was stamped twice, causing a doubling effect on the lettering and images. This type of error makes the coin much more unique and valuable. Coins with minting errors like these are highly coveted by collectors, and they can fetch a significant premium. Additionally, some 1975 pennies were struck with a cud error, which happens when a piece of the die breaks off during the minting process, leaving a raised area on the coin. These cud errors are rare and can make a 1975 penny worth far more than its typical counterparts. So, how much could a 1975 Lincoln penny be worth? Well, most of the pennies from this year are still worth only 1 cent, but a well-preserved or error-struck 1975 penny can command a much higher price. In fact, a 1975 penny in mint condition, or one with a rare minting error, can be worth as much as $39,000, that's right, $39,000 for a single penny. It's amazing to think that something so small, something you could easily overlook in your coin jar or even on the ground, could be worth such a large sum. But that's the magic of coin collecting. Sometimes, the most unassuming coins turn out to be rare and valuable treasures. So, the next time you come across a 1975 Lincoln penny, take a moment to inspect it closely. It could be the key to unlocking a small fortune. Whether you've got a collection of old pennies or just happen to find one in your change, it's always worth taking a closer look, because you never know when you might stumble upon a rare gem. Today, you might think a penny from 1974 wouldn't have much of a story to tell, but trust me, there's far more to this little coin than meets the eye. Today, we're diving into the history, design, and potential value of the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1974. You might be surprised to learn just how much this simple coin could be worth today, so stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll want to check your collection, and your spare change, for this rare gem. First, let's rewind a bit and set the scene. The 1970s were a time of great change in the U.S. economy. We were in the midst of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and the country was also dealing with rising inflation and changes to its currency. At this time, pennies were still being made of 95% copper, and they were an important part of everyday life. In 1974, the U.S. Mint produced billions of these coins to meet the demands of the economy, but what we didn't know back then was that some of these pennies would end up being worth far more than their face value. The design of the 1974 Lincoln penny was the same as it had been since 1959, with the iconic image of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side. The obverse features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909. It's a design that has stood the test of time, with Lincoln's image becoming one of the most recognized on any U.S. coin. Surrounding the portrait, you'll find the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year, 1974, all of which are inscribed with perfect clarity, giving the coin its signature look. On the reverse side, we have the Lincoln Memorial, which was designed by Frank Gasparo. The memorial is depicted in great detail, with the iconic columns and structure visible. At the top of the coin, you'll find the inscription, United States of America, and just below the memorial, the coin's denomination is clearly marked as 1 cent. This design remained on the penny until 2008, when it was replaced with a new reverse featuring the Union shield. But for collectors, the 1974 Lincoln Memorial design remains a beloved piece of history. So why is the 1974 Lincoln penny so special? Most of the pennies minted that year are still circulating, and at face value, they're not worth much more than 1 cent. However, there are a few specific factors that can turn a 1974 penny from an everyday coin into a valuable collector's item. The first factor to consider is the coin's condition. Like with any collectible, the better the condition, the higher the value. A 1974 penny in mint condition, with no signs of wear or damage, is much more valuable than one that's been in circulation for decades. These coins, known as uncirculated or mint state, are highly sought after by collectors. If you've got a 1974 penny that's been carefully stored and hasn't been subjected to the wear and tear of everyday use, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Another factor that can drive up the value of the 1974 penny is a minting error. Yes, errors in the coin's production can make a seemingly ordinary penny into a rare treasure. Over the years, various minting errors have been discovered in coins from this period, and the 1974 penny is no exception. Some 1974 pennies were struck with double dies, meaning the design was stamped twice, creating a doubling effect on the coin's features, such as the letters or numbers. These double-struck coins are highly collectible and can be worth far more than regular pennies. Additionally, there are some rare 1974 pennies that were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the metal disc used to make the coin was incorrect. Some 1974 pennies were mistakenly struck on planchets intended for other coins, such as nickels or dimes. These error coins are extremely rare and are highly prized by collectors because they represent a unique mistake in the minting process. Now, you might be wondering, just how much is a 1974 Lincoln penny worth? While most of the coins from this year are still worth their face value, those that are in pristine condition or have rare minting errors can be worth a lot more. A 1974 penny in excellent condition, with no signs of wear, could easily fetch hundreds of dollars. But if you're lucky enough to have a 1974 penny with a minting error, such as a double die or a wrong planchet, it could be worth much more. In fact, a rare and error-free 1974 penny could be worth as much as $41,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $41,000 for a single penny. While that may sound unbelievable, it's the reality for rare coins with significant minting errors. The value of a coin can skyrocket when it's in excellent condition or when it has a unique flaw that makes it stand out from the rest. So, next time you find a 1974 Lincoln penny in your pocket change, take a moment to examine it closely. It could be the one that makes you a small fortune. Whether it's in perfect condition or happens to have a minting error, this coin could be worth far more than you think. Don't just toss it aside, take a closer look, because you might have a hidden treasure on your hands. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating story behind the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1978, and how it could be worth a lot more than just 1 cent. So, let's dive into this hidden gem and uncover what makes it so special. To begin, let's set the scene for 1978. The U.S. was in the midst of a dynamic period. Economic shifts, cultural changes, and a decade of political uncertainty were shaping the country. In the world of coinage, the 1970s were a time of transition for the U.S. Mint. The penny, which had been made of copper since its inception in 1909, was about to see some major changes. As copper prices were rising, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with different compositions, which would eventually lead to the creation of the modern penny that we know today. But let's get back to 1978 and the penny in question. The design of the 1978 Lincoln penny hasn't changed much since its introduction in 1909. The obverse of the coin features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. The image of Lincoln, facing to the right, is instantly recognizable, and surrounding the portrait, you'll find the inscription, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the year, 1978, below. This classic design is as American as apple pie, and it's one of the most beloved coin designs in U.S. history. Now, flip the coin over, and you'll see the familiar Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of the country's strength and history. Designed by Frank Gasparo, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side of the penny features a highly detailed image of the memorial's columns and structure. Above the memorial, you'll see the words, "United States of America," and just beneath it, the coin's denomination, 1 cent, is proudly displayed. The reverse design remained on the penny until 2008 when the U.S. Mint introduced a new reverse featuring the Union Shield, but here's where it gets interesting: the value of the 1978 penny is much higher than you might think. While the vast majority of these coins were produced in large numbers and are still in circulation, there are a few key factors that can make a 1978 penny significantly more valuable. First and foremost, like with most coins, the condition of the penny plays a major role in determining its value. You see, the vast majority of 1978 pennies that were produced saw a lot of action. They were spent, exchanged, and spent again, which means most of them show signs of wear. The more wear a coin has, the less valuable it becomes to collectors. However, if you manage to come across a 1978 penny in mint or uncirculated condition, meaning it has been carefully preserved, showing no signs of wear, you're already looking at a coin that's worth far more than just 1 cent. These coins, known as mint state or uncirculated coins, are prized by collectors and can command a premium price. The better the condition, the higher the value, and a well-preserved 1978 penny could be worth hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. Now, let's talk about something even more exciting: minting errors. Minting errors are mistakes that happen during the production of a coin, and these errors can make certain coins incredibly rare and valuable. There are several types of errors that collectors look for, and the 1978 Lincoln penny is no exception. One of the most common errors found in 1978 pennies is the double die error. A double die occurs when a coin is struck more than once, causing the design to appear doubled. This can create a dramatic effect where the letters and numbers appear to be duplicated. Double die pennies are highly coveted by collectors, as they are considered unique and much rarer than standard coins. If you happen to find a 1978 penny with a double die, you could be looking at a coin worth significantly more than its face value. Another type of error to look for is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned in the die, resulting in an off-center image. These off-center strikes are rare and highly collectible, and they can add substantial value to a coin. Additionally, some 1978 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets, which means they were mistakenly made with the wrong metal. For example, a penny might have been struck on a planchet meant for a dime or nickel, and this kind of error is highly prized by collectors. These coins are considered especially rare and can fetch a high price at auction. So, how much could a 1978 Lincoln penny be worth? Well, as we've seen, the value of the coin depends largely on its condition and any potential minting errors. While most of the 1978 pennies are still worth only 1 cent, a 1978 penny in mint condition, or one that has a rare minting error like a double die or off-center strike, could be worth a lot more. In fact, if you happen to have a 1978 Lincoln penny in exceptional condition, or even better, a coin with a rare minting error, it could be worth as much as $43,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $43,000 for a single penny. It's amazing to think that something so small could hold such value. But that's the thrill of coin collecting. Sometimes, the most ordinary-looking coins can turn out to be incredibly valuable treasures. So, next time you find a 1978 Lincoln penny, take a moment to inspect it closely. You never know, it could be worth far more than you think. Whether it's in mint condition or has an intriguing error, this coin could be your ticket to a small fortune. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting and want to learn more about rare coins, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future discoveries. There's a whole world of rare coins out there, just waiting to be discovered. Happy hunting, and keep looking for those hidden treasures.